Thanks for listening to If You Know You Grow the podcast. My name's Chantel Braley, and I am your host. I've got almost 18 years experience across e-commerce and marketing, and I'm so excited to take you behind the scenes of the industry, chat to some amazing founders, and also figure out what it really takes to build a career in this industry. One of the biggest things you can do to support the podcast is to subscribe and to download our episodes. You can also find us on socials at If You Know You Grow or on my personal socials at Chantel Braley.
My goodness, it is my first solo ep of season 3, and I've had such a big day today, and I actually just got off of a super cool call, and it's so tough because there's so many things that I want to tell you guys, but certain things are unfortunately bound by an NDA that I do. And I just got off a call with, like, I would say one of the most powerful creators in the industry's manager. And I'm so stoked around how the industry is changing in influencer marketing. And if you don't like influencers, look, actually, if you don't like influencers, you're probably not listening to this podcast, because I have very clear views on how I feel about strategic influencer marketing. But yeah, it's kind of crazy because I'm so excited to be working on this project. And it's interesting watching creators shift from like sponsored content that is super paid and really boring and feels like it's in the past, and then like starting to get people who have community to have a little bit of skin in the game and embedding their community in the brand. And I love this. And there's so many conversations happening like this right now across my portfolio of brands that I feel like this is the next era, and I think it's fucking phenomenal. Anyways, I thought it would be really good just to kind of catch up because we've had like a couple weeks apart, and look, not a whole lot has changed, but I think that we've been working on a lot of things behind the scenes, and I wanted to chat about the event that we had to celebrate the first birthday. So first, it was really cool to be like, wow, this podcast is a year old. It is my first child. It's my first personal brand experience that I've ever done. And one thing that I shared with everybody, and I know that I've said this before, it was so much harder with me putting myself out there as Chantel Braley than it was as Chantel from behind the scenes of whatever brand it actually was, because I've always been able to lean out like, well, that wasn't my strategy, it was the brand strategy and blah, 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 but whereas this is me. And so there are definitely times where I've chosen progress over perfection, and that's something that you should be more comfortable with, is you should be comfortable with the concept of progress over perfection, especially if you're a perfectionist. But it's also just like so cool to be like, wow, this community is a year old. And I wanted to do a very different format of event. And it's not because I think events are overdone, because we know that I am a party girl. I love a martini. I love a night out. I love to have fun. But it was more so, if I think about what is unique about me and what is the purpose of this podcast, it's I want to bring people together. I'm obsessed with people having genuine connection. And I know that I wouldn't have been me without the people that I met along the way. So what a disservice it would have been for me to not share the people that have changed my life with one another. And I think the people that change your life professionally are just important as the people who change your life personally, because if you are in a role that you are obsessed with, they are so intertwined. And even if you're in a role that you're not obsessed with, there is that level of it's hard to show up in every place, in every capacity. And yes, I would love to say that my personal life doesn't impact my work life and my work life doesn't impact my personal life, but it does. And even when I haven't been in a purpose-driven career, it still does. And so I think that's a very reasonable expectation for me to be like, well, why don't I share these people with each other? So look, there were definitely things that went wrong that I wasn't like super happy with, but that's only if I'm being really critical about myself. But when I think about the fact that there were branded moments and great pieces of content and we had so much fun throughout the event, I think one of regret is I wish that I actually had more content, because I think that that's like always my thing. Like I focus on my personal brand content like absolutely last, which is so bad for somebody who's trying to scale a business. But it was so cool that at the end of the night, it was literally just my clients that were left. And they weren't like left because they were wanting to talk to me. They just had like stayed on because they were vibing and they were having a fun time. And I love the clients that I get to work with. I'm so obsessed with them. But it was also cool that like I didn't sit there and be like, oh, someone from this brand was here and someone from this brand was here. And like the brands that were there were really cool, or that this creator was there. It was more about the quality and the caliber of people. It really showed me how incredible the people around me are. And yes, that is because of the way that I present and the way that I treat people and the value that I offer. But it's also because we have really great people in this world and in this industry. And that's something that like I never want to forget. But this year with season 3, one, I'm only going to try to have so many episodes, which I haven't actually figured out how many I'm going to have. But there's a couple of things that I want to do differently in the second half of the year that I hopefully will be able to commit to. So what better way than to talk about it than to talk about it in a podcast? So I think the first thing is I no longer accept average treatment of myself. I feel like there is that common saying that like you accept the type of love that you think you deserve. And I never thought that I was somebody that sat in that category. I always thought that like I know that I deserve to be loved and I know that this and I know that. And then I got hit with, of course, a TikTok. And it was basically somebody saying that people accept a standard that they were shown throughout their life. Not necessarily shown in how they were loved, because I was so loved my entire childhood. I know I've spoken about my grandmother, and like Grandma Midori or Sandy, whichever name I've called her on here, because her name is Midori, but Sandy, it's a very like common thing when you're from a foreign country, you adopt a Western name. She was the most incredible person that I could have ever asked for in my life, and she is well and truly one of the loves of my life. But I didn't have a traditional upbringing, but I always feel as though I'm fine because I had no absence of love in my life. And that always led me to believe that I then also was loved appropriately or perceived love appropriately. And I think that I actually don't think that I've allowed that. I think that I accept any form of love because I want to be loved. And that's actually really not healthy. That means that I accept a really low standard because that's what I think I deserve. And I know that I deserve more, and I want my future child to also feel as though they deserve more. And it's not just about somebody loving you as much as they can. It's about somebody, whether it's friend or partner or whatever, it's about somebody loving you in the capacity that you love. And it's about having a reciprocal view. And that's just not something that I really recognized before. And so that's one thing that I really want to make sure that I commit to in this next half, that like the love that I accept is the love that I give. It's wild because all of my best friends are those people. All of my best friends love just as hard as I love them, and we have these beautiful friendships. But I don't think I've always accepted that in every capacity of my life, and I think that's something that I'm definitely going to change. The next thing is I think that I want to make some more time for the slow. We've talked about how I've been busy and I've been in hustle culture and like all of this, and it's totally fine because it's season. But the season, like, look, the season has lasted over a year now. I actually remember the point in my schedule where I got overwhelmingly busy, and it was when I went to Bali last year for Amber's birthday. And I don't think that I've actually slowed down since then, and I think I've maybe taken like 4 naps. And that is so unacceptable. And I don't feel burnt out, but I wanted to take a break from the podcast because I felt as though I was producing content to make sure that I was hitting a KPI as opposed to producing with intention. And that was not something that I wanted to do because I knew that I wasn't going to create the best work from that. And I always tell my clients, like, you need to get away. You need to go people watch. You need to put down the tools. You need to do this. And I wasn't allowing myself to do that because I was getting so bogged down in admin and the day-to-day. And I think the thing is, I am never going to have that 2 a.m. thought of like, oh, holy shit, I forgot to do this. But I also need to just be a little bit better at being across everything that I need to do. And then probably the last thing that I want to like see different in the second half is that I want to lock in. I was messaging Beck back and forth because I bought one of her wellness journals, and you have to start the wellness journal on the first of the month, which like I love, but I kind of hate because if I don't start it on the first, then like the overwhelming perfectionist in me is just like, oh, you need to start on the first. And why this is the moment that I want perfection, not progress, who fucking knows? But I told her, I was like, I am locked the fuck out. Like, I need to lock in because I'm so locked out. And I'm really locked into work, but I'm so locked out to every other aspect of my life. Not socially, actually, no, it's just fitness and my eating habits. And my eating habits are coming from, I've gone back to eating from convenience. Although I am making sure that tuna and rice feel convenient, although I'm a little bit burnt out on tuna and rice at the moment. But I'm not being as meticulous with my planning and my food, and I can feel that. And I still haven't gotten into a really positive routine from the gym. And my PT Lockie moved in, I think like March or April back to Melbourne. He's probably like 26 right now. I say that he's 24, but I feel like he was 23 or 24 when we first started training together. And one thing about me is you will permanently stay whatever age you were when we first got close. And then in my brain, that is what you are. Like, even some of my nieces, they get to a point where I just kind of forget what age they are. And I'm like, oh, you're like Tori to me is 7. Tori is not 7. Tori is 9. And I need to remember that. Savvy is like 9. Savvy's not 9. And, you know, it's like you get to this age and then, I don't know, is that like an old people thing? I think that's an old people thing. I think I'm getting old. Um, However, moral of the story, back to the point. Since Lockie left, like he left and I haven't been able to get into a good routine. And I have a new PT named Kim and I really like her and I think her training is great, but I'm not training as frequently as I used to. And that's something that I want to change because I think that like the way that you feel about yourself is the way that you project yourself and like things are fitting me different and I may have not gained weight, but I can feel my body composition is changing and like they are all things that I'm so conscious of and I just want to feel really good. I want to close out 2026 on such a high. And guys, we have literally what? September, October, November, December. We have 4.5 months of the year left. And then that's it. 2026 is out. And it is literally like the final quarter. It's the final crunch time. We've got a quarter and a half. And like that's literally it. So I want to make sure that everything that I'm doing, whether it's, the way that I show up, the way that I love, or the way that I am moving, feels intentional because the last 12 months have felt high growth and they have felt amazing, but there's been a little bit more chaos and not always good chaos. And I joke and I say, well, I want to be somebody that's chaotic because it's a part of my brand. And I think there's a part where the creativity comes from the chaos. But I also think there's part of me that knows that if I slowed down and I was a little bit more intentional, that I would be able to produce something that's better quality. And I want to make sure that I do that. But I want to do that for me because I'm doing that for other people. I'm doing that for my friends. I'm doing that for my clients. I'm just not doing it for me. And again, I need to put myself first with everything like that. Some of the cool things, like shifting back in my ADHD brain to kind of talking about the event on Sunday, I had a couple people come up and tell me that they felt seen or that they met somebody that had changed their life or they met somebody that had done this. But one thing that someone said to me was that it was one of the first times that someone came up to them and they recognized them as them and not recognized them or their message as the organization that they were with. And I realized that as mostly women, because again, mostly this podcast is for the girlies, it's so easy to confuse your self-worth with where you're working. And like, I now can't separate that because I am my own brand. But you are so much greater than the brand that you're working for. And yes, sometimes a brand can change the trajectory of your career, but also the quality of your work can. And I think we're moving out of this era to where I believe that a brand only produces this type of employee. But I am in the era of knowing that there are some brands where I would never hire employees from, although I cannot actually voice that because I feel that that would be quite controversial. This morning, I was very privileged to go to breakfast for the Mary McConnell Foundation with the Children's Hospital. And I wanted to read something that the CEO published. And it was really cool because it was not women pumping up their tires, right? It was literally Lucy Henry Hicks from Dish. Dish supports the Children's Hospital Foundation. And part of this, there is a grant process that helps fund research for women in the field so that they can help focus on specific things. And there were 3 recipients this year. I don't think they disclosed the amount of money that was there, but one thing that I found really interesting, actually there was kind of 2 things, and I know that this podcast is like it probably feels like a FaceTime, but this is what we needed, right? We needed to catch up. So the CEO said, When women invest in other women, the impact rarely stops with one person. One opportunity creates another. One act of generosity inspires another. One investment becomes many, rippling through families, workplaces, communities, and generations. And even though that wasn't written about me, I resonated with that so much, because this isn't about a community where you have to be a particular person from a particular brand and your worth is tied to that. This is about people who want to do bigger things in their life, whether it is through e-commerce and marketing, which is always going to be what I can speak on as a subject matter expert, because I literally am one of the subject matter experts in the industry, or if it's through like mindset work, or through it's just finding new adult friends that are going to change your perspective on how your life should be operating. Like the concept of being around other women and that being something that completely transforms your life is so cool. And I'm not someone who would have ever like described myself as like a feminist. I am very pro women, and I think I am a feminist because I believe in equity. I think that the reason I would have never identified with it is because I think that there's this large group of feminists who are feminists not because they love women, but because they hate men. And I refuse to be tied to a side of thought out of hate. And I think that's like such a negative trait and such a negative space to be in. But I want to do more to empower women because I believe in what she said. Making change for women and investing in women does create a ripple effect because women are generous. Feminine energy is generous. We're just a bunch of givers at the end of the day. So I guess kind of from here, I'm trying to think of like what other updates I can and want to give you guys. And it's never really about want. It's more about can. I'm about to go into like another really crazy season of travel. Natalie had to delete a whole portion of the podcast just so you guys know, because I just like leaked a secret that I wasn't supposed to leak. So thank God I actually remember that I wasn't supposed to say that. So she knows that I wasn't supposed to say that, because if not, that would have been really, really bad. Or it wouldn't have been bad. It just would have been a little bit annoying. So in the next couple of weeks, and I don't want to give a timeline because I feel like timelines are always muddy, but there is going to be more coming in the form of events. And I was very specific about making this invite only, not because I don't want everybody to come along, but because I want to create a space that isn't just about monetary contribution. And I also wanted to figure out, if I invite these people, how many people are going to respond and how many people are not going to show up, and what is that going to look like, and what does this look like from an investment metric side. But there are going to be more events, and there are going to be more conversations, and there's going to be more learning, and things are about to really fucking heat up over here. And I am so excited. Not only are projects getting wild, like some big things are launching next month across the clients. And I mean, this is like September, October, November, December, like she's going to be big. But also there's some new things coming from me in terms of what's going to be shifting and what's going to be moving. So I'm really excited to like chat about all of that in a bit more detail as I kind of like learn to flesh it out. But this is just a call out. Send me a DM if there's something that you want to see or a question that you have, or like I like having these two-way conversations, because sometimes it is literally just me talking to a camera and me hoping that somebody listens. But I'm leaving this week short and sweet, kind of as an ode to, I'm so excited for what's happening, and I'm so grateful for this amazing community and this amazing community of people that are all so different. I think I can wholeheartedly say this was the first time I've gone to an event in the industry where you had people who were founders, you had people who were brand side, you had people that were literally consumers and had nothing to do with anything within the industry. And then you also had influencers and creators. And to know that every strategic move I do actually thinks about and considers every single person, I think is incredibly powerful, because how do you drive impact and how do you find growth? Through thought diversity. Am I thinking about multiple people in everything that I'm doing? Yes. And am I going to be launching some of the craziest campaigns in the next couple months? Yes. And actually, probably that's kind of a update that I can give. You're going to start seeing some published articles about me, because Meg, who is listening, is now my publicist. And I've also started investing in myself to try to get myself out there, because the reach that I have should be more than me being the person who has had too many martinis at a party and wants to overshare on strategic decisions. That's never going to change. But I think that I thought about this a couple months ago on why I hadn't done certain things. And it's because I was minimizing myself to make sure that other people felt comfortable. Fuck that. We're done. We're not doing that anymore. Because I would never feel uncomfortable with someone doing something expansive. So why should I worry about how someone feels if I'm being expansive? With that, everyone, I hope you have a great week. Remember to like, share, subscribe, although this kind of felt like a little bit of a FaceTime just for us, just for the ones that wanted to chat it through. And next week, we have the beautiful MLV on the podcast, and I'm so excited to share cool insights from her about customer experience, which is super critical ahead of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So you have an amazing week, and I will catch up with you then. Bye.